Hello and good evening, and welcome to the Cinema Color Podcast. You are listening this evening to our literary trek, the Journey to Bantam, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Patrick Theophilus Horatius Brennan, and I'm here with my co-host, the esteemed Lord Robert MacDougall MacDonald McCullough. So say, if you would not mind giving your curriculum vitae to the listeners, Mr. McCullough.
I like long walks on the beach, turn-offs, our Amber Heard fans. Yeah.
All right, bringing it up. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. You have joined us here for Journey to Bantam, number 13. Rob McCullough, Lord Rob, and I undertook this mission probably pretty close to 2 years ago when we did our first one of these, which was Spock Must Die! Exclamation point. We set out to do all of the Star Trek novels from the first iteration of Star Trek novels, which began in the late 60s with Bantam books. As you know, of course, the Bantam books had published novelizations of most, if not all, of the episodes of the original Star Trek series. And then they published some photo novels from the original series, and then they began publishing novels of some of the animated TV series episodes. And then at some point, and maybe while they were doing that, I believe, they started publishing novels of entirely new material that were written by authors, some of whom may or may not have ever seen an episode of Star Trek. But tonight, some of those novels, we've done 12 of them so far. We've ranked them, and some of those are better than those. But tonight we get an honest-to-goodness actual Star Trek author writing a book. That's right. Tonight's book from October 1980, weighing in at 223 pounds or pages or stone. I'm not exactly sure how the calculations work. Is David Gerrold, who probably will be famous forever for penning the episode "The Trouble with Tribbles," the original series. He also is known for writing the novelization for Encounter at Farpoint, which was the original Star Trek: The Next Generation story episode. There's apparently a novelization of it, and apparently he wrote that. He also received a partial writing credit for the Cloudminders, which was a season 3 Star Trek episode, which he co-wrote with. Yes, exactly. I don't know if we can give him credit for the Smoking Hot Chick. He co-wrote that with Oliver Crawford, or at least he shared writing credits with Oliver Crawford. And David Gerrold was involved with the first season of Star Trek: The Next Generation when Gene Roddenberry decided to put together a team to bring Star Trek: The Next Generation. Very nice, exactly. He came up.
Have it.
You do, awesome. And it says David Gerrold on it. That's right. Yeah. So he came up with. So Roddenberry put together a team that included D.C. Fontana, a few other, of the Robert Justman, and of course David Gerrold. And as fitting with Gene Roddenberry's nom de guerre and his modus operandus, he quickly alienated many of those folks by the end of the first season.
I thought you were going to say he screwed David Gerrold.
No, I probably not. That may be the reason Gerrold left early. I don't know. It's either he wasn't screwing him or he was screwing him. I'm not sure. Whichever. But yeah, so David Gerrold was involved briefly in Star Trek: The Next Generation, but did not stand there too long. But tonight, we take up the novel of his that was published in 1980. I hear that he might have started writing this a little earlier. Some of this novel is going to sound vaguely familiar to some of the episodes of the original series, which is okay. And then they also kind of went into some details, bringing in elements of other stories as well. So, what do you have to say about this novel right off the top of your head there, Rob?
Well, you're right that David Gerrold will always be remembered for one thing only. That's The Trouble with Tribbles, which is a great Star Trek episode. And I will say, just as a quick starter, I enjoyed the way he writes. And also, 1980, this is when we're really kicking off the golden decade of Star Trek novels.
Boom.
So, yeah, the 80s was all about Star Trek novels. So, we're coming off the first film. We're about to really pick up steam with the films. So, yeah, it's got some stuff coming together. I'm expecting good things here.
Yeah, there'll be films in 82, 84 and 86. We are coming up. In fact, I think this weekend was the 40th anniversary of Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. Was this weekend, I believe.
Did they already have that big screen?
No, it's going to be that's going to be in September, Labor Day weekend.
No, I meant for the motion picture.
The motion picture was 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
Damn it, I missed it.
So, but we are going to have the Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan screening of the 40th anniversary later this year. So that'll be exciting. Yeah. And they are for those of you who are wondering, the Star Trek the motion picture, the physical buy it and bring it home in hard copy 4K DVDs coming out soon. So
sweet.
So in this case, yeah, you're right in that we had new Star Trek in 82 and 84 and 86, and then, of course, Star Trek The Next Generation debuted in 87. I believe the first episode aired the weekend that the VHS tape of Star Trek 4 came out, I believe. And then that same weekend that Star Trek 4 released on home video was the first episode of Star Trek The Next Generation.
They also we were getting VHS tapes of individual Star Trek episodes at that time, all 79 of them. That was a great decade
for sure. I mean, because until before that, we were at the mercy of our local channel showing it to us at 4:00 in the afternoon, Monday through Friday, and whatever the hell they felt like playing. That's what we felt like the hell watching. And of course, they were the cut episodes, right? They were 5 minutes shorter than the original versions were. Stuff like that. So, so what we're trying to say, of course, is we've said it before on these episodes of Journeys to Bantam, is if you were looking for new Star Trek, the novels is where you were getting that new Star Trek. I know there were probably like comic books as well and stuff like that, but the novels is where Rob and I were on it. I came in after all these Bantam novels were out. I joined in right around the time that the first pocket books ones were coming out. I think I bought the Entropy Effect. It had already been out for a year or so when I bought that. But tonight we are nearing the end of the Bantam era. We have this one and one other. The next one after this is Death's Angel by Kathleen Sky, who wrote another one of the novels that we've done already, Vulcan! !
That seems appropriate if you're wrapping up a line of books to have Death's Angel be the one.
The end is coming for you. That's right, exactly. But we are getting ahead. I'd be getting ahead of myself if I was talking about this, because we should talk about the Galactic Whirlpool. This is an episode, a book that's written, and it's going to have some similarities. The mission is nothing particularly specific. They're not charged with a mission. They kind of bump into something and take it upon themselves to investigate. The Enterprise encounters a strange object in space, and it seems like it might be some sort of a spaceship, but it's really funky and looks like it's cobbled together. And then they have to figure out what it is and where it's going and where it came from. The first thing they figure out, I believe, is that it's facing certain annihilation because of the eponymous physical object, which is what do I get that's right? Bolos? Do I have that right? Ellison's star. Yeah.
Or if you prefer, it's dueling black holes. But a ding 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 ding.
That sucking sound you hear is dueling black holes. That's right. So the Galactic Whirlpool is an object that I believe David Gerrold invented. Wasn't in Star Trek lore before. It's some sort of an object that is the most destructive force in the galaxy. It's two orbiting black holes that basically create huge gravitational waves, sucking everything that they can. And this thing that they find, the Enterprise is heading almost straight for it, and it'll get there in 3 years. But if they don't turn away soon, they'll never get away. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So the mission
turned away yesterday, Butch.
That's right. The mission becomes: can they rescue this semi-derelict vessel from the whirlpool?
So, and this book does feel like an episode of Star Trek, which I'm in. But haven't we come across some derelict ships from yesteryear floating in space already?
Yes, we've come across derelict ships. The one that this feels like the most to me is not a derelict ship episode. This clearly is like, let's take the idea of for either the world is hollow and I have touched the sky, and run with it. The people who are on a spaceship, but they don't know anything exists outside the spaceship, right? Whereas for the world is hollow, they thought that they were on their planet Yanada, whereas they're actually on a spaceship from their planet Yanada to their destination, and it was facing certain doom as well, in the form of crashing into something. as opposed to the other asteroid one from season 3, which was an asteroid about to crash into a planet. So,
you know what I was thinking, Butch, today, when I finished this book up, it makes sense that you would have stories like this if, you have this, basically from the 21st to the 23rd century, you go from just creeping out into space to zipping around in starships at much faster than light speed. So there's plenty of opportunity for lost ships from yesteryear, or coming across something from 100 years ago that doesn't know that technology has passed them by, right? Because you're exploring the vastness of space, and some people are putting along, and some people from the 23rd century are zipping around exploring. You're bound to come, like we did with Space Seed, right? You're bound to come across
absolutely, and
stuff like that.
This does have a little bit of the feel of Space Seed to it, in that it's from a bygone era. In fact, probably only somewhere about 50 years or 60 years after Space Seed happens. That this is the other one that this feels like also a little bit too. Not only is it got a bit of the Space Seed and got a bit of For the World Is Hollow, but the fact that it's not to get ahead of ourselves, ladies and gentlemen, it's people, human beings from Earth on this object, and the object is about to be destroyed by natural phenomenon. That kind of feels a little bit, if I may, like the Paradise Syndrome also, which was people from Earth on another planet that was about to be destroyed by Go ahead.
And if Butch, you mentioned the Cloud Minders, I don't know, what do you say, bifurcated society?
Yes, the Eloy and the Morlocks, kind of as H.G. Wells in The Time Machine did. There's a similarity to that as well. Yes.
So basically, on this ship, you have the Cloud Minders in the upper levels. I know I'm trekking.
Yes.
Whatever the hell they were, the Grogs or something like that. What were they in the miners, the people on the planet?
On Trogs.
Troglites,
I believe is what it was. Yes, Troglites. And they had the little shovels. That's how you know they're the guys with the trowels. Yes. But
yes, got some fertile ground here.
Yeah, but let's talk about some of the exciting things that are in this. They do. I didn't know if you noticed it, but there was very, very brief references to Lieutenant Eric's and to Lieutenant Maress, both of whom are characters from the animated series.
I didn't know that.
They only mention them by name. I don't believe you see them on screen or on the page, but they do mention them. We also get some interesting new characters we've never seen before. We have the 3 members of the contact team, Garcia, Omar, and Stokely, who get a little bit to do. We also get to meet the ship's attorney. That's very important. That's Munker. She's all about keeping track of the Prime Directive and how to obey it. And we get Specs. What do you think about having a ship's historian and naming him Specs because he wears glasses?
I think the James Bond franchise stole this guy to be the latest Q, I think.
I was definitely picturing the guy who played Q from the latest iteration of Bond. But you know who else we get? We get a returning character. God bless David Gerrold for bringing back to us Lieutenant Kevin Riley.
Hell yeah.
Who gets a big part in this. I guess you could say that's cool. Maybe they could have had Sulu do all this instead. Sulu doesn't have much to do in this, but Kevin Riley's all over this book. He gets a lot to do. Kevin Riley is a character who appeared in 2 episodes of the original series. And then the actor got a TV series of his own. So Bruce Hyde is the actor.
Did you ever read The Lost Years, Butch?
Oh, yes.
Sure you did.
I did.
Wasn't Riley prominently featured in that one as well?
It's been too long, honestly, for me to remember, but I did.
Admiral Kirk needs an assistant, and I believe it was Riley. Riley's kind of been down on his luck and getting passed over for promotion. His wife's leaving him because he doesn't have ambition or whatever. And so Riley is someone who's popped up in the novels. And he was a fun character. Why was he only on 2 episodes?
He was only on 2 episodes because the actor who played him, Bruce Hyde, got another TV series. And so it wasn't anything with the staying power of Star Trek, but it was one of those things where it's like I could be like an occasional returning guy on this show once in a while, or I could be a regular on another TV show with a regular paycheck, and that's what actors are really looking for, is a regular paycheck, right?
Yeah, so, but I would say fucked up. But he still I'm sure, got plenty of convention mileage.
Yeah, that dude could show up at the convention. I got, back when they were doing like one of the 30th anniversary, 25th anniversary things, when they did like Entertainment Weekly had an issue where they ranked all the episodes. They had interviews of several of the actors who'd been in TOS and TNG, and he was one of the ones that had like a half a page interview with him or whatever, talking about what it was like to be on Star Trek. Of course, not to make a big deal about it, because the comedian Kevin Pollak had a half a page too, so they gave him as much as Kevin Pollak, who's famous for doing a Jim Kirk impression, as it were. So so I would say, I could talk a little bit about what the other main characters, from Star Trek are doing, but they're really not doing a whole lot. This is, I think, go ahead. Why don't you tell me? Yeah.
I was just going to say, the one character I thought David really nailed was Spock. I thought Spock's little dry humor and everything felt right. We got some fun. The way this book was written, especially the first half of the book, there was lots of stuff where he would spend a 3 or 4 page chapter on kind of the inner workings of a character's mind. What goes in his decision making, what goes into Spock's decision making, what is it like, to navigate, if you're Jigov or so it was fun. I liked how this book was written. I was a little surprised that they apparently forgot that at least in the books we've been reading in the 70s, you need either a horny Spock or a horny Kirk. We didn't get either one. What happened? We had a female guest star on the episode, and there was no bridge crew to be found.
Yeah, that female guest star is Kathleen Arwen, or Catwin for short. She's on the vessel that they find. The vessel, I believe, is the Wanderer, right? Did I get that correct? Yeah. And so that's a vessel that left Earth a couple hundred years before.
The Wanderer.
Yes, I'm the Wanderer, and it roams around. And so it's been out there for a few hundred years. We get a very long, detailed backstory on that, too. I wrote down in my notes that Moby Dick is the novel that I read after I graduated college. And Moby Dick is telling a story, but every once in a while they have what I guess they call the interstitial chapters, where Melville just tells a little bit about how whaling works, or how a ship works, or what officers do on a ship. And that's what some of those chapters that Gerrold's writing here tell you. It's like, by the way, this is how Starfleet works, and stuff like that. There's just these little interstitial, because again, we don't have anything else except these episodes that had filmed and been off the air for 11 years at this point. So the fact that somebody's given us what we want, God bless him for it. So I thought that was great. And he puts in a lot of detail in this, including details in the background on this ship that they find, which we'll get there when we do our little kind of breezy walkthrough of this. But Kathleen Arwen is the character that we meet. She spends time on the ship. She gets to know Riley. She gets to know Riley, I think, if you know what I'm saying. Or at least there's a promise of getting to know you a little better in the future, Mr. Riley, as it were.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because her name, Kathleen Arwen, is very much, Arwen is straight out of Tolkien. Of course, these are Earthlings, so they probably grew up reading Tolkien or whatever. They call her Catwin for short, and I'm only reading that. Now I stopped picturing Lord of the Rings and started picturing Katniss Everdeen from the Hunger Games. As soon as they call her Catwin, I was like, oh, great. So now it's Jennifer Lawrence out there, which is fine. I can picture Jennifer Lawrence in my head. That's fine.
I like picturing Red Sparrow, Jennifer Lawrence.
There you go. That's perfectly fine as well. So, I think it was very interesting, I thought, and so we if you want, we can get down to it if you want. How about that?
We can get down to it. I don't work till Tuesday, so we can talk as long as you want.
Yeah. So I mean, we start off with a chapter that's given background in the USS Enterprise, which is the pride of Starfleet, and also by extension, the pride of humanity in general.
Yes.
We get background on James T. Kirk. The T is for Tiberius, which I think is funny. because they explain how he got that. It's from a class that he taught at Starfleet Academy called The Last of the Claudians. He uses Tiberius as an expletive under his breath a lot in this, or is that in the next one?
He uses it as an expletive. He uses it as like a mantra. He uses it. So, are they saying his nickname is Tiberius or his middle name is Tiberius? I was
never clear on that. I took it that from what Gerrold wrote, I took it to mean that he adopted it as his middle name, and it wasn't actually his middle name. Maybe his middle name is Roger, hence the James R. Kirk on the tombstone. Because
I thought we covered this. It's Ruprecht. I thought we had covered that.
Right. James Ruprecht Kirk. And he just when your name is Ruprecht, I'm getting my new middle name, and it's going to be Tiberius. Damn it, or shall I say Tiberius? All right, so
I believe that is definitely going to fall into the non-canon column of how Kirk's middle name came about, right? Whatever Gerrold came up with in this one.
And I got to tell you one more thing from this first chapter. My son last year explained to me a concept from literature and movies called Chekhov's gun. You ever heard of Chekhov's gun?
No.
So it doesn't mean our Chekhov. And Chekhov, it's like Anton or I can't remember whoever the famous literary Chekhov is. Yeah. So the idea of Chekhov's gun is if you're going to show the audience a gun in the first act, it has to get used by the third act.
Okay,
right? That's the idea. Is you're not if you take the time as a writer to show the audience something, then it has to come into play later. So, to that end, there's a lot of talk in the first chapter about how they're being stalked by a Klingon battlecruiser.
Yeah. So basically, if I remember, Butch, and if I can read my notes,
yeah,
they sort of are told to investigate this Klingon that they found out about that's snooping around.
Yes.
So they're kind of going off of whatever they were doing. And then while they're doing that, they come across this sensor anomaly, which was kind of fun. And it's kind of cute how they sort of, Kirk I could see him doing this in an episode, talk himself into why they should investigate.
Yes, exactly. So to that end, saying that if you're going to show Chekhov's battlecruiser in Act 1, you better use Chekhov's battlecruiser by the end of the book. Spoiler, they do not ever come back to a Klingon battlecruiser. They violate Chekhov's...
they do and they don't.
They do and they don't. Yeah,
99% don't, but they do.
We're expecting open war with this thing. And, we have so many of the novels we've read so far focus on the Klingons at some point, and we just so God bless them for being different than all those.
And how many episodes have we seen where there's just at the edge of sensor range your Klingon ship, right? And it does come into play.
Yes, that's true. So all right, so it's a kind of an interesting way I thought it was an interesting way to set it up. The idea that it's almost like so many of the other Star Trek novels that we've read that came before this just kind of launch you into a story and assume you know the characters, whereas Gerrold is taking the time to set it up for you. By the way, for those of you who don't know at home, this is what Star Trek's about, what the Enterprise is about, what the captain of the Enterprise, James T. Kirk's about. For those of you not playing, those of you unfamiliar, if you don't know, now you know. As they
That's
say.
right. If you don't know, you got to ask. It's sort of also, I think, he talks a little bit about how vast space is and stuff, and how empty it is, and it's sort of. I don't know. To me, it reminds me of those, the old Wild West, right? Space is kind of the Wild West in Star Trek. Absolutely. And so, the starship has many duties. It might be going to give a physical on a planet. It might be, checking out a distress signal. It might be investigating why the whole solar system has been eaten.
Delivering salt pills to a couple people on a planet. Sure, yes, I know exactly what you mean. Or sometimes two people on a planet, sometimes one person and a monster on a planet. You never know.
And they're out there on their own, and they can't always check back with mommy, right? So the Enterprise is out there on the cutting edge and, breaking new ground, so to speak, is going where no one's gone before. Yeah.
So what do they find while they're out there? At the end of chapter 1, and we find this object. So what do we know when we first find it?
Well, they found this sensor anomaly, and it looks like it's either really big or going really quickly or both.
Yes.
by really quickly. I think they end up saying it's going a third of the light, pretty fast.
Third of speed of light, yes.
Right. So that's probably faster than, a natural phenomenon. I assume would be an object would be hurtling along.
A natural phenomenon traveling the third of the speed of light is probably very small, right? So like very small particles travel that fast. Basically, in Newtonian or Einsteinian physics, the bigger of the object, the slower it's going to travel. So if it's a big object, it's going to travel slow, so significantly lower than a third of the speed of light. But this is traveling at a third of the speed of light, and it's big. And they're like, they go into some detail about, most objects, in modern day, if you have a warp capable ship, you don't travel at sublight speeds, you travel at warp speeds, right? And so it's weird.
Yeah, that was interesting how they were kind of talking about I'm probably getting ahead a little bit. They mentioned how hard to actually match up with it and kind of parallel because of the speed it is going. It is in that in between range.
Yep.
It's, and they're, I just thought I really enjoyed these first few chapters of how he was writing it and talking about some of the day-to-day meat and potatoes stuff that the starship does and stuff that you wouldn't think of probably. Normally you'd think, oh, they'll just go over to whatever it is, and they're talking about how hard it is to even track where it's going.
Yeah, there's a little bit of danger when they want to try to match speeds with it. So he does put Chekhov in charge of figuring out, okay, so track its course, figure out where this thing came from, right? Get your star charts out and go look, right? Because it's traveling in known space, and so they figure they can figure that out, but it'll take time. Chekhov's got to bust out his slide rule and pocket.
Did you pocket something peachy anyway?
Thank you.
Did you like chapter 2 when he references the Vulcan satirist to Pshaw?
Pshaw. That's a very clever turn of phrase. I'm not going to lie. Absolutely. Yeah, it's great. He does give Spock seems to be the guy that Kirk often in this book tasks with coming up with a good story to kind of explain something. And so we do. Chapter 2 is the Spock chapter, and it tells a little bit about his thought processes and trying to explain this weird thing that they're tracking, what to share and when to share it, and how a first officer and a science officer who logically goes about deciding what the captain does and doesn't need to know. It's kind of interesting. Yeah. Something we've seen on screen happen, but no one's ever explained in words. We just see it happen in the original series all the time, and Gerrold is taking the time to explain how Spock, as first officer and science officer, might go through the decision process of deciding what information to share and when with the captain. It's cool.
Isn't it cool, Butch, how in Star Trek there are so many, I think it would be a mistake for someone to be a Star Trek fan and not read Star Trek novels.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot of people who aren't readers, and for those, I'm sorry, but
but also you have television, and also you have films, and also you have the great music of Star Trek. So the Star Trek, all these different things add to it. So I think that I do think the novels add to my appreciation of and enjoyment of Star Trek.
Yeah, I do too. And for those of you listening at home, and I know there's lots of out there. Look, there's a Star Trek novel for everybody out there now, right? I mean, no matter what series you like, there's a Star Trek novel for you. If you don't like any of the series, but you're still for some reason interested enough in Star Trek to be checking stuff out, there are Star Trek novels that aren't about any series, right? They just invented ships and characters whole cloth and started writing novels about them, and those things took off, right? So there's a Star Trek for every need, desire, and
Strange New Worlds has books coming out soon.
Do they? That's amazing. Yeah, Strange New World is just really fresh off the press as a TV series. They're only 5 episodes in a 10-episode first season, and they are already preparing novels. So good for them. So, all right. So let's see. So now we've found the object. It's traveling at 1/3 speed. We're trying to match up with it so we can get close, so we can learn a little bit more about it. They go through this big deal about how this is probably Sulu's point in shining, is him trying to figure out how exactly to approach this and match the rotational speed, because this is an object that creates artificial gravity the old-fashioned way, which is it rotates, and then the interior walls of this, just like in 2001: A Space Odyssey, simulate gravity by rotational centripetal force, as it were.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, and so there's a whole lot of detail about how they do that, and eventually they do. It appears to be kind of a city in space, a large object that's old and has had a lot of new construction added over the years, and a lot of stuff that probably used to be there and isn't there anymore. It's very cobbled together.
What did they say it was about? I'm trying to remember because I read most of it last week, Memorial Day weekend, but was it about like maybe 15, 20 miles in total, the size of
Yeah, and the Enterprise, of course, is just over a mile in length, I think. So no, it's not. The Enterprise is over 1,000. Just over 1,000 meters. Put it at about less than a mile long. Yeah.
So it's pretty big, and they can't beam over to it. And I like that Gerrold devoted a whole chapter. Not that the chapters are very long; they're all about 5 pages on average. But a whole chapter on the pros and cons of boarding this thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And what first contact would be like. Is it, how upsetting is it going to be to whoever we find in there, etc.
Yeah, exactly. They're hypothesizing that given what it looks like, maybe these people in there they clearly have been very isolated for a long time. Maybe they're isolated against their will, or maybe they're isolated on purpose and they don't want to be bothered, right? So that's kind of the big thing. And maybe they don't even know they're on a generational vessel, and that's where that's exactly what I'm screaming for. The world is hollow and I've touched the sky is screaming out at you, right? It's like it could be a sleeper ship like Space Seed, or they could be a generational vessel for like the world's hollow. That's very interesting. I do like the fact that they spend a good deal of time in our favorite place, the briefing room, to talk about stuff. The briefing room works good for exposition on the TV series. It works great in a novel because you need exposition. I mean, novels are mostly exposition, so good for them. So they decide that it has engines that were added post construction, that it's been adrift largely for a century, and it looks like they'll need to find an entry method. Like I said, they can't just beam aboard. So they have this process that Gerrold goes through of explaining how, for doing this, you would land on the surface with using a shuttle, and then install some sort of a shelter there that would then be able to cut a hole into the vessel to allow yourself egress to the vessel. Except while they're there, they find a porthole, and there's a human face looking out the porthole, like a human face.
Did that feel? This maybe is too meta. Did that feel very Terror at 40,000 feet or whatever?
You know what I was thinking? I was thinking a little bit less meta, a little bit more TOS. I was thinking the Mark of Gideon.
Oh,
it does feel just very like Terror at 20,000 feet. It's like,
Shatner looks out the window.
If it was Shatner looking, that would have been really damn meta. But it's not. It's not Shatner. It's Riley or one of the new characters or whatever. So now they're very certain that there's humans in there, and then it's interesting because now we get a whole thing about the bug spot test.
Yeah.
What do you remember about the bug spot test?
Nothing. I wrote it down. I wrote that I enjoyed it.
It's some dealio about how how first year cadets or whatever at the academy, there's something where
right. Yeah. You're on the moon.
Yeah.
They tell you to go over here and get something, and while you're doing that, your faceplate starts getting bug spots on it, like bugs on a windshield.
Yes.
And it's something that, if I remember right, Butch, it's something where you didn't plan for it, you didn't prepare for it, you didn't train for it. It's something in the moment, unexpected, that you have to figure out on the fly.
Yep. Yeah, and so that they get a little bit of detail about kind of like, how midshipmen train in the dealio, and so now we have a contact team, and the contact team includes O'Mara, Stokely, and I wrote Spock, and they are the first ones into this vessel. There's air inside, a breathable air atmosphere inside.
Which I think you're just glossing over the fact that Cadet Kirk made mud flaps to solve
that's right, exactly. The bug spot.
That doesn't tell people right away that this guy's command material.
Am
I right?
Yeah, he's I reprogrammed the test so that I could have mud flaps to get rid of the bug. He cheated. That's right. Yeah, exactly.
What do you call that? Like the Kia Maru test, or what would you call that?
The Hyundai Maru. That's right. Exactly. Very good. So they beam over there, and they open up this thing, and now they're going into this air atmosphere. They close it off pretty quickly. So, and it turns out they find something floating inside there, and it's very old tech for space travel, right? It's called a hobo, right? And it's essentially a balloon that floats around inside of a spacecraft. The idea is if somewhere in a spacecraft there's a minute leak somewhere, and you can't tell where it is, you're just losing air pressure. Well, this little balloon floating around will find it for you because it'll float towards where the air is leaking out towards. And then eventually you just go there and you'll find your leak, right? So they find one in there. So that's like really old human tech. Like
that's like putting a canary in the mine shaft. I mean, that's
exactly. Well, you've been in a car. Have you ever driven in a car and your kid was at a birthday party and they came out with a balloon? And then when you accelerate, it's really weird. When you accelerate, you fall back into your seat when you accelerate, but the balloon floats forward. Because
I don't.
Have you never had that happen? Because what happens is when you accelerate, it pushes you back in your seat, right? And and the air, because the balloon is heavier than the air, or is lighter than the air moves back, and the balloon is pushed forward by the heavier air moving back. That's what it reminded me of, is something like that, which is not really at all what it is, but that's fine. Maybe it's just me then. Okay, that's great. Yeah, sure.
It shows me though that Gerald's paying attention to detail, right? He's thought this story out.
Yep, a guy who spent a decade coming up with ideas for story bits is like throwing them all in here. It's great. So, so this means having established an interior presence, it's time for Spock and Kirk to tag out, and Lieutenant Kevin Riley tags in. The crowd goes wild. He comes in. I like to think Kevin Riley, when he comes in like Ultimate Warrior, comes in and he like shakes the top rope. Yeah, to get because as the crowd goes wild and stuff like that.
And aren't they saying Riley's kind of fallen on hard times?
Yes, he has.
Daddy.
Yeah, he had to have a pep talk from Kirk in the gymnasium.
Yes.
Fact.
And the way it's described is like, wow, what a great leader Kirk is, right? He kind of maneuvers things so he gets this one-on-one time with Riley, and it's not getting called into the office with HR in the room.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
Just a little pep talk, and
Good
now
boss.
This is an opportunity for Kirk to show, I believe in you. Now, the people that Riley's going to be working with are skeptical, I think, of Riley. So this could be a good opportunity for him.
Yeah, and the people where he's working with are the ones we've mentioned before, O'Mara and Stokely. They're kind of like the more kind of security-ish guys. And then, let's see, her name is Marilyn Garcia. She's from the analysis lab. So it's those three plus Riley are the contact team, they're called. That's interesting because in a few years when Next Generation comes out, there'll be away teams, right? But in this case, they're a contact team because they're hoping to make first contact. And they do. They do make first contact. They're walking the corridors, and they are attacked by what they're called savages, or maybe they should call them hostiles. They have a little bit of a discussion about why is anything that attacks us always called a savage?
Yeah.
As somebody once said.
I feel like this was like the start of political correctness. No, you can't call them that.
Well, I mean, the idea is, why is everything always called a thing? Basically, it's kind of, it's.
But it's a little bit of a rocky start for Riley here because they kill somebody in this exchange.
Not intentionally, right? I don't think it's intentional, right? But
but if you got tasked with doing something, you accidentally killed somebody, you probably are gonna you could get written up or
Yeah.
avert. Anyway.
Yeah, when you're trying to make a good first impression, rule is don't kill the first people that see you. That's a good rule. I'm a big believer in rules. So that's what happens, and these people are disguised as monsters, but they're human beings, people underneath disguised as monsters.
Yes.
That's an important thing. So yeah.
Here, but we're heading into chapter 9, right?
Yep, chapter 9. That's right.
So did you enjoy So this is a whole kind of throwaway chapter, but it's world building, right? But it's talking about cursing in Starfleet.
The art of creative cursing is what I wrote down, yeah.
And he Gerrold throws in a Great Bird of the Galaxy reference.
Yes.
It's a fun in-joke for diehard Trek fans. I don't think every big Trek fan would get that, right?
Oh, I got that immediately, yes.
Well,
yes.
Got it, but I think it's fun. He did not allow,
He doesn't explain it.
If
it's
great.
There,
and,
yes.
Yeah, if you didn't catch the Pshaw, fine, that's cool. And if you don't get the Great Bird in the Galaxy reference, but I thought it was a fun little in-joke. He's slipping them in there, but it's not just like slapstick.
That's right. So yeah, that was a nice little interstitial chapter. And now, chapter 10, we are exploring as they go deeper into this vessel again, because the vessel gets its gravity from rotation, right?
Yes.
The farther out they are, the farther out on this ring you are, the more the gravity there is, and the closer you get in, as they go closer to the center of the thing, there's less gravity. So it's like low gravity and low light is what it is. And Riley's shown his leadership, by having Stokely take the point after Stokely had messed up earlier, but Stokely was kind of responsible for the death that happened earlier, and so he's like being a good team leader by letting him get that back. And then O'Mara says that the ship reminds him of the ruins of old New York City. That's kind of I was thinking Miami 2017 by Billy Joel right about then. It's like, it blew the Bronx away and sank Manhattan out at sea. Or maybe Escape from New York, right? Exactly. It's like, you're number one, as it were.
That's the best Borgnine impression I've heard all day. We do know from Star Trek lore that there was a World War III.
That's right.
So it is cool, to get a little shout out to, I guess New York ate one of the big ones. That's
exactly. And so then we come up across our first.
You think it was a fail-safe type situation, Butch?
It's hard to tell, really. I mean, the something for the next novel he writes, right? I'm not sure he wrote another novel other than we've already established that he wrote Encounter at Farpoint. But yeah, so they come across something wrong with the air. They've decided the air is breathable, so they're going sans helmets right now. But then they start to get a little bit lightheaded. It's because they encountered something called an O field. And that is there's some sort of a field in there that like aligns the oxygen atoms in such a way that there's still oxygen in the air. Your scanners say there's still oxygen in the air and breathable oxygen, but your body can't breathe it. So you're passing out or whatever.
Butch, you've probably encountered this. You're down there, you're looking for the O spot.
Yes.
And you encounter a sudden loss of oxygen. Am I right?
Yeah, I don't think we're talking about the same thing as Gerald's talking about anymore. About it, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yes, so it happens. And so the important thing is they figure out that the way to get around this is to just fire their phasers at a very low level, and that'll like realign the oxygen or whatever, something like that. So they decide they can get around this whole O field thing by just like doing a quick little low wide beam laser burst and then walk.
Right, they threw it out there. They introduced the bug spot thing.
It's Chekhov's bug spot. That's exactly right. Yeah, exactly right. You show it the first act, you got to use it. So it's interesting because what we also see while all this is going on is that Riley's in command on the ship. Of course, he's a lieutenant. All these other people are lieutenants, but it's Spock running point from the Enterprise. They're in constant contact with Spock. They're checking in with Spock. Spock's going, "Okay, well, we think you should do this, or you may continue, or whatever."
Yeah. He's got a lot of free reign. They're letting him. He's got a nice long leash.
Yep. And so they eventually reach a dead end, and they make this decision that instead of looking for a different path, that they're going to cut through. And that's chapter 11. When they cut through, they find on the other side there is sunlight and summer. on the other side. It's artificial, simulated, outdoor sunlight, daytime, warm weather inside this vessel that's a couple hundred years old. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And now let's see where we're at. So now, once they're in here, then we get a little. This is they remind us that this is the inside of a spinning cylinder. So when you look up, because it's very, you remember we've encountered this at least once, twice, I think now, where you're on the inside of a surface. And once again, we did this in, I can't remember which one, the Starless World for one, right? Where they're inside a what do you call it, a Dyson sphere. In this case, it's much smaller, but when you look up in the sky in this place, there's a light source up there, but you're also looking at the ground above you because you're on essentially the inside of a tin can, and you're standing on the interior surface of
Think of the starbase from Star Trek Beyond.
Right? Oh, absolutely right, exactly. Yeah, so perfect example. And so you're looking up at the ground above you and the ground below you. It's probably very disconcerting, but that's how rudimentary multi-year travel would work when you don't have artificial gravity like they do on the Enterprise. So
and you got space is at a premium, and you got to use it.
Yep. And so they talked about, then they see that they're growing, this must be the farm of the vessel, they're growing tomatoes that are huge. Apparently low gravity means that you can grow huge fruit because the fruit can grow without falling off the vine and stuff like that.
Sense.
Yep. And it's funny because there's, again, just one of the details Gerrold throws in there. They say low gravity has its advantages, and one of them is reminded that that's a punchline to a dirty joke.
Yeah,
and they don't tell you the joke, but it's like it's like the dirty joke. It's you're left to your own devices to come up and fill in the joke for the advantages of low gravity.
Moonrake.
That's exactly right. And so then they talk about the political correctness of not calling them savages, that or whatever, and then they are soon accosted by a guard who's speaking. I wrote pidgin English, although they call it common language or whatever. Riley thinks she's pretty. That's going to come in detail later.
It's the chick who was out the window, right?
Yeah. Well, we think so. We don't know. I think they decided it was. And the problem is they decide they're going to have to stun her, except they all stun her. And apparently you don't want to get hit by multiple phaser stuns at one time because she's actually in a little bit of health danger. So they got to get her to the Enterprise.
Yeah.
And that's where we're at.
Dire straits, but her brothers in arms are there to take her back to the Enterprise.
Well, luckily the man's too strong, and so it's all good. So if Bones can fix her, she'll be restored to continuing the walk of life, as it were. So that's where we're at. So what happens there? Then we're back on the ship with Bones, right?
Yeah. Sorry. I'm just still chuckling about our stupid Dire Straits riff on there.
Yeah, stupid is the active word there. So
what's that? Yeah.
So back on the ship, Bones confirms that she's human, blood type and everything. And then he's deciding whether or not to wake her up, and then she wakes up on her own, which is great. And she punches Bones, says that whatever he's doing is a demon trick or whatever. And so they put her back out, not before she punches Bones a good one. And so since she's now unconscious again, to the briefing room again.
And Spock's gonna. I'll let me get. I actually read some notes for chapter 14 that were more than 5 words.
Let's do it.
So Spock presents the theory about the colony ship and how it came from Earth.
Yep.
And it probably kept not finding habitable planets and built up enough speed from whipping around various stars and planets to make deceleration an issue now after 100 or 200 years. And he thinks probably eventually this led to a civil war on the ship, which is a fun theory that is going to get borne out later in the book.
Yep, for sure.
But it was kind of a an interesting little thing to think about. Like, okay, the ship started off to find a planet, and you go to a couple star systems and no good, no good, no good, and now you're really humming along.
Yeah.
And there, you have a disagreement about, do we stop at this or not? And I think, there'll be a reason later on why the Civil War broke out. But it's like, if you don't stop, eventually you get to the point where you're not going to stop. There won't be any stopping.
This is your life now. It was meant to be temporary, and now you're just permanently living on this bus that's traveling around the country. It is interesting because they do talk about one of the choices that they had is, like, imagine you're stopping at this planet. You're like, as you're approaching and spending all your time and fuel to slow down and stuff, you realize, this is a habitable planet, but every 20 years it just wipes all the, Berthold raids or whatever take over and wipes all the organic matter off the planet, and then after that you're fine again. But you can't. So some of them are like, well, we can't stop there, and others are like, I'd rather that than stay on the ship. And that's kind of where the fault lines they think might have happened or whatever.
Years on a planet, maybe that's all I have left in life anyway, or do I want to keep hurtling along on Snowpiercer here?
Exactly, that's a perfect example. So the problem that they're up against is that they're like, look, this is a big, huge Earth ship. Why don't we know what this is? Scotty's like, look, if there was a ship launched like this, I think I'd know about it. And he's right. If there was a ship like this, he would probably know about it. But they don't know about it. So what do you do when you don't know about it? Well, first you have an interstitial chapter about Emperor McMurray. You want to talk about Emperor McMurray? I thought the Emperor McMurray stuff was about the most superfluous stuff in this entire book. It's basically explaining why he's decided the Enterprise needs a ship's historian, is what it is.
It's absurd. It's completely absurd.
Yeah, they meet some guy who took over a planet, and he lives there, and he declared himself emperor, and so Kirk mollified him by saying, we surrender. You're the president of the universe now. We'll come back and check on you every once in a while. We'll take our 20%, as it were. You can continue being the boss of the South Side, and
But here's a list of the problems that you're in charge of now. And the guy says, well, actually, I will let you deal with it on my behalf. It was just bonkers. It was dumb.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to do it. It's the best way to describe it. It was dumb. But anyways, if you don't know who it is, you got to find somebody on the ship who knows. And normally in Star Trek, it's Spock or the computer who tells you something. But in this case, you've got a guy named Specs down at the ship's history lab, and he's named for his glasses, naturally. And he knows right away. Turns out, he's already been tracking all this stuff, and he has an answer for them as soon as they come in the door. He's like, I've been waiting for you to come down and ask.
So you're saying then you don't believe he was named after Pee Wee Herman's dog?
No, I don't believe. Did Pee Wee Herman's dog wear glasses? I could have just called him Four Eyes, and then we would have known.
He was named Spec.
I know.
I'm
kidding. Yeah,
it was Big Adventure. We're on a big adventure here. You don't know? Is that too?
It's a little too that we're going to be doing our bracketology of 80s comedy movies, and that did get a seed. That was a seeded movie, Pee Wee's Big Adventure. So hold on tight to that. So it'll happen. 32 seeds, and that's one of them.
Yeah. So it was fun having a kind of a, buried down in the book. Well, sometimes you would get these characters in Star Trek where, like, where has this person been? But they're doing their job, and it's a big ship, and if the story doesn't call for them, and you get the impression Specs doesn't get out much.
He does not, yeah.
And it's a good opportunity for, someone's got to be running the library. What is library?
Library! Very good. So he tells about, he turns out, this is the Cometary Colony. Do you guys remember? And and Spock's like, oh yeah, actually I meant to mention that, Captain. I thought, I thought of that. Yeah, I just didn't want to tell you because my decision making from chapter 2. Yeah, or whatever. I wanted Specs to tell you. Yeah, that's the ticket.
I can see Specs in it like the optometrist on board. Can you read this line? ATOZ.
Yeah, very much so. Well
done,
it
was
by the way.
Fun. I like Specs character. I thought Specs was someone they could have probably put on the show. I was like, yeah, this guy's fun.
Well, boy, do we get then a long and detailed and interesting bit of history that never happened because it hasn't happened yet. It's speculative history about the powers of the world. There's an energy crisis, which, of course, in the late 70s, there was an energy crisis in the world. So Gerrold's writing about a modern problem, and folding it into a story of Trek, which is what Trek's about.
No, we can't relate now in 2022.
No,
right.
Absolutely, yeah, not exactly at all. But actually, we can't. I mean, the thing is, gas is expensive, but there's as much as you want to buy, they'll sell it to. Where there's no shortage. They rationed gas in the 70s, right?
Yeah,
and so at least we got that going for us. And so their idea is that the solar powers, as they call them, the United States, the Soviet Union, and Japan, which in the late 70s were the three powers, right? The three economic powers of the world. They worked together and they put up this object in the L5 orbit, which is kind of this sweet spot in orbit between the moon and Earth, where it's like, gravitationally like perfect, and it's a solar thing that then beams power down to Earth. And it's kind of solved the world's problems. The problem is that there are still two other groups that aren't part of the solar powers, and those are the oil countries, your Saudi Arabias and that stuff, that they're still trying to peddle their product, whereas all the solar powers have the cheap new stuff. And then, of course, the other little countries are like, yeah, we should build one of these things too, yeah? And they're like, no, how about we just sell you our power? And so the idea is the little companies work together with the oil companies essentially, and that's kind of where the fault lines are. And then you end up having this this long kind of I'm really kind of glossing over the details, but at some point the people who live and work up there in that colony, they decide to build another one. So there's two L5 objects up there. And then at some point, as the disagreements keep going, the one guys are like, hey, they start building fusion engines and putting them on the ship, and they're just going to like break away, as it were, literally, and go fly to the outer planets for a while.
I thought this whole chapter was really fun. I sort of mentally substituted China for Japan, and I thought it was interesting that in 1980, China wouldn't have even been...
Not on the radar screen, yep.
Not on the radar. I thought it was fun also that he talked about Russia, not the Soviet Union,
Yeah, well, they did mention the Soviet Union, but most of the time they said Russia. Yeah, so it works that way.
I thought it was fun future geopolitics, and I thought it was it was all very plausible.
Yeah, absolutely. So the important detail here is that's what this is. At some point, this ship was not a ship, but they attached engines on it and they started flying it around, and then at some point it left the solar system entirely and headed out for outer space, and tell my wife, here I am living in a tin can. So,
I'm flipping the desk. I'm out. Right? They just said, I'm out of here.
That's right. We're out. And so now, and that was they was called the Wanderer, essentially. So now this object that we've been seeing for this whole novel is they have a name for it. It's the Wanderer. And they figure, I don't know if it comes up here later, but they figure it had about 30,000 people on it when it left. And it had been running supply runs, but then it headed out on its own to go find a new, to fly the Silver Seed to a new home in the sun or something like that, as Neil Young would say, I guess. And so...
You know what it reminded me a little bit of, Butch? Do you remember 2010, the sequel?
The year we made contact, yes.
Yeah. Where you've got, if you remember, they had a joint Soviet-U.S. mission to go figure out what the hell happened up there.
Scheider was in charge, yes, absolutely.
And while they're up there around Jupiter, the politics of Earth are turning into a real problem, and they're up there. They're sort of outside it, but sort of embroiled in it. It kind of felt like that to me here with this story.
Does that mean we have to start fighting up here on the on the ship? No, we don't. Yeah, exactly. So they kind of have an idea of what they're up against, and so now armed with this knowledge, they can go back and talk to the girl.
Yeah,
and the girl calls them savages, of course, and she knows the whole ship and knows that this ain't the ship, but she knows what of Earth, but Earth's just a fable and a fairy tale, right? So she's wondering, she's just assuming they're either demons or they're lying to her, or she's been captured and they're gaslighting her or whatever. Trust is a hard thing to come by, as McCready once said, and so so they decided to take her up onto the bridge and show her some videotape review. She's used to being close to everything on a ship. It's interesting. They say that she's never more than 50 feet from anything, or, on a ship like that.
Did I ever tell you a few years ago? It was probably 5 or 6 years ago. I think when we had first moved into this house that we live in, and it might have been longer than that, but my daughter at some point just decided that she had to let me know that you're never more than 5 feet from a spider.
That was the last good night's sleep Rob ever got. Right.
I have not. Yeah. That when paired with we think people eat 5 spiders in their life, whatever bullshit. Yep. But so I've had the creeps ever since, the feeling of being watched. Yeah, apparently up there, you're never too far from, right? Yeah. She's always pretty close.
That's right. And so she kind of doesn't take this news well, and she takes off, gets back on the elevator and leaves. Of course, and they're like, well, we can't just go track her down and drag her back and make her do this. We kind of got to do it lightly. And so Riley takes it upon himself. He sees them, he sees her, running away from them in the hallway, and he kind of talks her down. And then they said, we're descendants of Earth. And she doesn't believe that, because, and he's like, no, we figured out faster than light travel. And she's like, that can't be done. It's not possible. Well, I know science, and science says you can't go faster than light. And so she has to kind of explain, well, we solved that problem. Then he says the phrase Scout's honor. And that is the phrase that she understands, and then she recognizes that, and she's like, "Okay, what's the motto?" And he's like, "Be prepared." She's like, "It is true." Okay, because that's like the Boy Scout motto, right?
I am going to say that the Pidgin English thing, and I like the idea that the way they're using English after this extended period of being cut off and being in this insulated society, But all the way back to Pidgin English, it's like, okay, that's fine. But when, there was a lot of dialogue in this book where Riley's using Pidgin English, she's using it, and I was just like, ugh.
Yeah. Well, can I talk to you about something about like that? So I was thinking about that. So the new Star Trek series, Strange New Worlds, is out. And it takes place like a few years before the original series on the same ship as the original series. And the thing that I find most striking about it is how the colloquial language that the characters speak on the new series sounds like modern English to my ear, whereas I grew up listening to Star Trek, which was more formal and stuff like that. It's all kind of like, hey, in the modern way we speak, and it's all kind of shorthand compared to like the early 60s, mid 60s, kind of like Star Trek, more formal language and stuff. And so there's a little bit about that struck me as maybe that makes sense. If the language has changed that much in 50 years, imagine what it's going to be like in like 250 years, where you're just like shortening everything. It's a pain to read, but I can see it happening, right? It's like,
I totally see it happening. I mean, if you think of how much English has changed in the last 300 years, it's a lot. I do miss. Just as a side note on Strange New Worlds, and I did try to watch the second episode today, but I was just really tired, and I fell asleep and had a nice little nap with the cat purring on my chest. That was nice. But yeah, I do miss the Enterprise is the flagship of the Federation. It is a quasi-military setup.
Yeah.
I missed some of that on Strange New Worlds already. Also, what the hell happened to the size of the captain's quarters that Kirk got the closet for when his 5-year mission came around? Pike's got a rec room. He's got a movie room. He's got a Yeah, Jesus.
I will say, if I had it set up, I'd totally be making ribs too. I will say that. So
Yeah.
but it's true. So we're getting around to that. Well, and ladies and gentlemen, if you hang on long enough, we will eventually get to our Strange New Worlds episode reviews at some point, I'm sure.
Yeah, but it does bother me a little. Like it's a military ship, and I was like, man, they're wasting a lot of space on this ship. And yeah, people are going down the hallway in their pajamas, and I don't know. It just rubbed me a little bit the wrong way.
Well, we do see Kirk walking down without a shirt on, a towel around his neck one time.
Oh yeah,
yeah. But of course, he's the captain, so I guess that makes sense. So listen,
he can walk down the hallway going, "Give me the brandy," whatever. You can do whatever you want.
That's exactly right. So they eventually Riley talks down the girl, and the girl explains that she's Kathleen Arwen or Catwin. And he wants to comfort her, and he does comfort her. And so they explain, well, we'll take you back to your ship. And so they get on the shuttle, because they decide to go see it from space and stuff like that. And she doesn't believe Earth's real, but Riley explains he's from California and that they're not gods. They seem like gods because they're so much more advanced to her, but of course they're not. They're just people. Then she's been out there for generations and has missed all the changes, and that's when we learned that there's about 3,000 people on the ship now, and there were about 30,000 they think when they left Earth. So it's like it's dying, right? It's like 1/10 the population. It's like a town in eastern Montana, essentially. It's dwindling down until there will be nobody left, right? I read this great book, a few years ago by this guy Jared Diamond, who talked about some of the Pacific islands that were populated, and Easter Island. When it was discovered again by Europeans, there had been a civilization there, but by the time the Europeans got there, they were all gone. And he explains kind of what it was probably like that when the last person, they basically what happened is Easter Island, they cut all their trees down to make all these statues, so they could they rolled them on these logs and stuff like that. And so they were no longer able to build ships, but that's okay. They figured people would come visit them in their little boats, and nobody did. So at some point, there's nobody left, and their population just slowly dwindled as they were cut off from the rest of civilization. And eventually, there's probably only one person left sitting by the shore waiting for that ship to come, and it never did. And that's kind of the future that you see for this Wanderer ship, right? Because it's like their population is getting smaller. There's a war going on in there, which we're learning slowly about and stuff like that. Eventually, it's going to be there's nobody left. Unless they can figure out a way to fix it. That's what the Enterprise does. It either is a black freighter of death or it fixes things. So
that's right.
So now we're back in the briefing room, and we're learning a little bit about what did I say? It's like this is where we meet this ship's lawyer, Munker. She's talking about the rules of contact, and I wrote Kirk gives no shits. That's what I wrote. And, so it's like contacting the ship will be equally problematic. And, there's Catwin is saying, well, she can maybe help with this or whatever. But that the real problem is that we get word from Chekhov where they're going to. He's arriving late. He's like, I just ran the numbers. We're in trouble. It's a galactic whirlpool. In 13 months, they're going to make contact. They're going to fall into the gravity of Ellison's star. And in fact, it might be too late already. I was like, don't they have tractor beams or whatever? But this is obviously a big object. And so basically they need to get the engines working on this thing yesterday, as you said, right? So
yeah, they're going to say it about every chapter from here on out.
Yeah, it's the worst place imaginable in the galaxy, basically, this place. And not only that, but it's going to the worst part of the worst place imaginable, right? And so that's what they're up against, and so that means time is a waste, and they got to figure out the solution if they want to save all this. It's it's not just people now; it's like history and posterity and stuff like that. So they decide. So Riley fills Catwin in on some stuff about the Federation and technology, and she talks about how everybody knows everyone over there on the ship and things like that, and he explains gravity and a whole bunch of other things that happen. Basically, you tell us about your world, we'll tell you about our world, kind of a thing.
Yeah, you show yours, I'll show you mine.
Yep, well done. And then there's a couple details, where Kirk gives Catwin, the bad news about Polos Bolos, as Riley calls them. That's the orbiting black stars. Yes.
If there's a lull in the book, it's these chapters.
Absolutely. There's a reason why I have these numbers written so close together. They do get Catelyn's first time in a transporter, and Spock explains it to her, of course, which is kind of humorous. I thought him explaining it to her. And then Catelyn and Riley make it back over to the Wanderer, and they make contact with her people. They're the topsiders that Catelyn's people are, right? The kind of the Eloi, the non-rebels, as it were, right? The
Yes.
people who run the ship over there. And there's rebels that live underneath on the bottom bulkheads where the gravity's higher and heavier and stuff like that, and the light's dimmer, and so we get a little bit of details about that. He's handsome for a demon, we find out. She says the problem is they're going to go meet the captain. The captain's a little bit religious, and he's a little bit of a stick in the mud, and he's a little bit of a old-fashioned, as it were. He's going to be hard to convince, right?
You know who he reminds me of, Butch? Not to just keep telling you, this reminds me of this, reminds me of
Captain
that.
Frost, you mean? Is that who you're talking about? Yes.
Yeah, he reminds me of the head doctor or scientist or whatever in Planet of the Apes. Right?
Yeah.
He doesn't care about truth or what's factual. He's got his belief system, and by God, come hell or high water.
It's like doctrine instead of truth, right? Yeah.
Yes.
I think that's true.
Yeah.
So, you're right. But we don't meet him yet, because first we meet Dr. Hobie. Dr. Hobie is like their scientist. We find out that the captain is kind of like putting the kibosh on the science anyway. What do we need the scientist for, or whatever? But they decide that Captain Frost, they're going to take him in to meet the captain. Except then some guards come in, and I wrote down KO1 is what I wrote down. Goes badly for Kevin Riley.
I can't believe I didn't write that down.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's like you're the reason. So that's when you have a commercial break, when Riley's laying there unconscious on the deck. You go to commercial if this is an episode.
Absolutely.
Spock surmises that that the stun weapons that the Wanderers use, the Wanderer crew used, knocked out their communications. They were in constant communication, but now it's knocked out. They were going through a tricorder, but he's hoping that they can maybe reestablish it. They have to eventually. They got to beam in some engineers, find the control room, and get these fusion engines back going. Right, is what they have to do. So they're working on that. And then Riley wakes up. They have him tied up in bed, and not in a good way. I wrote. I don't know why I was thinking when I wrote that. Riley tries to explain to him, what's going on, but pardon the politics I wrote. This is like trying to explain vaccinations to an ivermectin crowd. That's what I'm saying. Frost is a piece of work. He's talking. It's all demons and liars, or both. Riley loses his cool, and Dr. Hobie then agrees and with Frost, and once again it's KO1. Once again, Riley's back out again. And things aren't going well. So,
did you get the impression, Butch? Are we on chapter 29 here?
Yeah, just starting 29. That's right.
Yeah. So Riley gets he says they drugged him with left-handed adrenaloids or something like that, right? Which I got the impression it was like prednisone they were giving him, right?
Sure, absolutely. Why not?
He's tied up. They're pumping him full of stuff that's making him irritable, and then they're going to say, "See, this guy's, not making sense.
Nope.
He's a savage." Ooh, yeah.
And you know what you do with savages, right?
You try and pin him, but it never works out. But
well, in this case, they've decided that they're going to crucify Riley and Catelyn. And so they have this for sins against the ship, by the way, and they have this whole thing set up and stuff like that, and they're about to do it, and then suddenly the floor falls through underneath Catelyn and Riley, and they fall through into the lower bowels of the ship where the people live, which is good because the good guys, as we've been talking about him, we're just about to kill him, so it's probably just as well.
Yeah.
and now they're in the hands of the rebels down below, and we get a little bit of details about the internecine politics that are enduring. And the people down there, of course, are pissed because Riley and his pals, when they first got on the ship, they killed 3 of their people. Back to the first people that they encountered were these guys, and they killed 3 of them, not knowing what they were doing or knowing it wasn't intentional, but it still doesn't matter. They did it. And the best part about that is, what's the end result of that?
I don't know if we're on the same page, but they go on a Temple of Doom like runaway cart chase.
Yes. Well, before that I wrote down Riley KO1.
Oh, okay, good. Boy,
and then I wrote nonsense minecart ride is what I wrote.
Yeah, the minecart ride. I was thinking of short round and
yes.
They're hopping tracks and they're picking up speed just like the ship, right? They're getting out of control.
Yes. Hey, lady, you call him James Tiberius Kirk.
There it is.
Yeah. So, all right. So then Riley decides, after the minecart ride, Riley's taking his message to the common folk and seeing how that works. And it turns out that they're living down there in a much higher gravity. I think it's about 1.75 of Earth's gravity, so they're shorter and squatter down there and stuff like that. They meet Gomez.
Poor health, poor hygiene.
Exactly. Everything's, the lighting's bad. They need vitamin D shots, stat, and stuff like that. Then Gomez is the captain below, I believe is how I wrote this down. And there's a little bit of a description about how the schism happened, about that habitable planet and whether or not to leave there or to stay there.
Hypothesized.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so,
right?
Yeah, exactly. And so they have to, so the problem they have is, it's great. Well, even if you fix the technology, it doesn't matter. If we help you, it doesn't matter because Frost, the guy who just tried to crucify you, he's the guy with the controls to the engines. So you can fix the engines down here if you want, but it doesn't matter because he's the guy who controls the engine. So you're gonna have to deal with him too. But at least Gomez down there sounds like he's willing to be like part of the solution. So there's that. And then we have a family reunion of sorts as Riley and Catwin manage to bump into Stokely and O'Mara in the corridors, and so they team back up and they're like, we got to call the Enterprise and get this stuff going. And so that's when we have a captain on captain meeting where Captain Kirk comes over and meets with Captain Gomez, who's really not captain of anything. He's just the leader of the rebels below, right?
Yeah, and this is where we get Spock's story about his great grandmother,
yes.
Which I thought.
What do you got about that?
Let's see. An old woman was about to die, so she goes out to plant something that sounded suspiciously like palms, but I think it had a different consonant.
Dallin fig plant, I think is what it was.
Yeah, okay. And a little Vulcan kid sees her and says, "What are you doing, you dumb bitch? You're going to be dead before these trees ever bear fruit." And she says, "Well," and that's illogical. And she says, "No, it isn't illogical because I got to spend my life eating the fruit of something that was planted by someone who lived before, right?" So this idea of paying it forward.
Yes.
And it turns out that was Spock's great grandmother, and it was part of the philosophy that makes Vulcan such a important addition to the fabric of the Federation, etc. Right, teamwork and doing stuff not just for yourself, but for the good of others. Right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
A very Star Trek idea.
Yes.
And it's interesting that Spock's the one telling the story, I think, right? Because it's logical, right?
Altruism is logical.
They can't figure out that why we'd want to do something, and the answer is because, just because you're not going to benefit doesn't mean it's not to the benefit of the greater good. Yes, it's the right thing to do and the tasty way to do it, as Wilford Brimley once said. So now, look, there's a couple chapters. We're at 35 and 36, and I'm really have a problem with some of the stuff. They're going to use some stuff that is apparently like these floating things that look like weird creatures or whatever. I wrote down. How familiar are you with the '60s Disney cartoon or of Winnie the Pooh? Or the ride. Heffalumps and woozles is what I wrote down these things are, basically.
Yeah, I could have done without this section of, we're going to use basically, parade floats or whatever.
Thank you. Right, exactly.
It was dumb. Like, really, that's what you came up with?
New and improved Joker products. Yeah. I just don't get it. I don't get it. But that being said, on the balance of things, it's not ruining anything for me. I just don't get what's going on here. Is what I'm doing. Basically,
that's the second dumb thing, really, in this book.
They need to have something to distract the bad guys while Scotty and his engineers do their work fixing this thing, and then Kirk and Spock's job is to make it to either the control room and take control of the ship, or to make it to Frost and explain to Frost why he should join their team, right? That's their job.
Wasn't there an opportunity to quote the odds in here at some point?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, if Gene Kuhn had written this book, we'd have had odds quoted all 3 or 4 times by now, but that was totally his thing. But David Gerrold's like, no, I don't do that. No, I come up with funny things like heffalumps and woozles or whatever.
I would have liked to have seen the look on Spock's face when the plan they come up with is parade balloons to make people laugh when they come bouncing down the hallway. I fully expect that Spock would have been like, "Are you fucking kidding me?"
Yeah, and then I at some point here, I kind of there's a couple chapters in here. I'm 38.7 and 38.39. I don't have really much written down on these at all. Scotty's teching the tech. Basically, it's going to take time, and there's the farming area is they're kind of moving through the farming area basically, and there's some kind of nonsense about how there's bad guys dropping. Like I said, it's that they're on the spot of the ship where if you look up, you see the people standing on the surface, but they're directly above you, and at some point there are people flying from that surface towards them and like dropping spears at them, and so they're shooting phasers at the people wearing wings. And
I mean, we did one of these books where you had the kind of like wingsuit sort of battles. Didn't we already have that? And even if you missed Flash Gordon, which I also believe was like 80 or 81.
You want to live forever? Yes.
Yeah, no, it was better than the parade balloon stuff.
Yes.
God, man.
Yeah, I would say that it's not the strongest part of this, where they're kind of trying to land this puppy. They do have they shoot their phasers at the spear guys, and they accidentally like burn up the wingsuits, and some people get hurt that way or whatever. And then they try to get to the control room, but the lights go out. I wrote the way is shut. The control room lights go on, and the generators come into use, but there's and so now the problem is with the power coming back on, the lights are coming on down at the lower levels, and so now the Morlocks, the people, the rebels down there, they're blinded by this because they're not used to the bright lights, and they start to think, what? Say what?
Blinded by the.
Yes, thank you. You're right. I was like, okay, I wasn't sure whether to do the Springsteen version or the other version. So
does he say? I know he's not singing in that song. What is he saying?
Well, the original line is deuce, right? It's a reference to a car engine, cut loose like a deuce. I mean, that was Springsteen's whole thing, was writing about cars back then. And so he's attempting to talk about like what are the Beach Boys, the Little Deuce Coupe, right? Kind of a thing, right? Yeah. So it's that kind of deuce, or dropping a deuce. They're dropping deuces all over, is what I'm saying, as it were. So. So the blinding light. So Gomez thinks that this is all like, it's like, you're betraying us. He's like, don't worry, we'll send the security guards to protect your guys there. And it's like, it's everywhere. You can't protect all of us. So we're going to get blinded, and they're going to come roaring in here, and they're just going to take us all out while we're fiddling with trying to fix the engines. So they decide to like turn the light up all the way and blind everybody.
Yeah, I just thought, so if I may, Butch, this plot point of, and they talk about this a little on board. Scotty's like, it's going to be like, Okinawa, right? You're going to be fighting for every.
Yeah.
It's going to be like a raid.
Yeah.
You're trying to make
yes,
your way.
Exactly.
But the whole time I was like, well, why is it like that? Why can't you have some guys with phasers blasting everybody? And it would have made more sense to me than this bullshit with cranking giving sunglasses to.
Yeah, they just need to give all the security guys like phasers and 3 extra power packs each, and then you can have Morgan Woodward saying, "We stunned thousands of them, and yet they came."
Right. There's only 3,000 people on this ship.
Yeah.
You're in hallways. I get that it's I'm just saying it's an option before you get to parade float balloons.
Don't they have like anesthesia gas or something like that, right? And you have gas max.
Right. 500-watt bulbs. I mean so this is kind of dumb. This whole plan just seems dumb.
Yeah. Well, speaking of dumb, eventually they make it to the control room and everything's where it's supposed to be, or is it? Frost is waiting there with Dr. Hobie. And he's got Riley's stolen phaser, by the way, Frost does. And I wrote this down. He's a flat earther, Frost is, right? He's like, yeah, all this is unreal. You guys are talking about a world outside this world. Nothing exists outside this world. This world's all there is. You guys are making it up. But of course, he's done in by I can't remember exactly how he's done in by his phaser exploding, or Riley's phaser exploding. But he is. He's kind of like he's consumed by an exploding phaser.
I thought it was an odd choice to have to go out like that. I really did. I thought it was strange to blow the guy up.
Yeah, your captain died screaming like a stuck Irish pig. Yeah, so the long and the short of it is that then after Captain Frost is gone, they take Dr. Hobie down to meet with Captain Gomez. Then they reach a detente. And so they decide, okay, we can work on this. So we'll get our engineers to work on all this stuff. And then we get chapter 44, Riley and Catwin share a kiss, and that's very nice. We've been waiting for that.
Hey, Butch.
Yeah.
Before you
barrel. Yeah, I'm barreling.
Before you wrap this up, it's pretty blue paper and a pink ribbon on it. We just did a Taste of Armageddon.
Yep, we sure did.
Can you imagine if they'd have said, we need to make peace. We can't do that, Kirk. And so he just fucking an accident kills the guy. All right, well, now we'll deal with someone who will. Like that, it felt like such a weird solution in this book to do it that way. Kirk usually, talks some sense into the two parties, right? And Gerrold didn't do that. He's like, fuck this guy.
We have to decide we're not going to vaporize ourselves with a phaser today. So it all ends. Yeah, you're right. It ends very weirdly, and so they're like, I guess we can get along now that the a-hole's out of the way. You want to make a deal now with Dr. Hobie, or do you need to be vaporized by a phaser too? Well, I guess I'll deal. That's pretty much it. So then Riley and Catwin share a kiss, and then Scotty and Chekhov have figured out a way for Wanderer to slingshot around the whirlpool, and then there's some jokes made about mating rituals. It's I would say not a great ending to this book, but
but it's like a teaser for. I was like, did he just tease the Trouble with Tribbles at the end here? Right, like, all right, we're off to K7.
Maybe they're going back to K7.
I thought it was he was like sending them off, and the next thing they're going to do is the Trouble with Tribbles.
I don't remember if they set a star date on any of this, right? That'd be easy enough. If they set a star date, it'd be easy enough to compare the star dates. But yeah, they may have been setting it up like this took place before. It was a story that was told during the original series.
I got, which I thought was kind of funny. Also, we neglected to give a shout out to the "I'll Take You Home Again" Kathleen line earlier in the book. But
I've decreed that all the archers shall now wear their hair down.
But I was like. It was a weird ending, and then it had that weird teaser, I think, for the Trouble with Tribbles, which I was like, huh. But it, it was the journey, not the destination for me in this book anyway, so I didn't really care. But I was, Like, okay, they had to end it, so they did.
All right, well, we've got 2, no 4, no 6. Baker's dozen of Star Trek novels now. 13 on our list. Where did you have this ranked?
I'm torn. I would say this is not firm.
Yeah.
I have it either 1 or 2. I'm tentatively putting it 1. I remember the story of Vulcan a lot better.
Yeah.
But I liked how this was written, although now in kind of rereading the notes, I'm like, it does have some dumb stuff in it, so I might flip those two.
Yeah.
I might put Vulcan at 1 and Galactic Whirlpool at 2. What did you think? In fact, I am doing that.
Well, so I'll tell you. So if I go from 13 to 1, I continue to have Trek to Mad World at 13.
Hold on, let me get my pen here so I can keep track of where you're ranking them.
So I have Trek to Mad World at 13, Price at 12, Fate of the Phoenix at 11. So the two Phoenixes are just above Trek to Mad World. Spock Messiah at 10, Planet of Judgment at 9.
Hold on. So you got Trek to Mad World, Price of the Phoenix, Fate of the Phoenix?
Yep.
Okay.
And then
what?
Spock Messiah at 10.
Okay.
Planet of Judgment at 9.
Yeah.
I went Devil World at 8. That whole Sawing the Woman in Half, I just still can't believe they put that in. Spock Must Die at 7.
Okay.
The Starless World at 6.
Wii U.
World Without End at 5.
Uh-huh.
Perry's Planet at 4.
Yep.
Horatius at 3.
Yeah.
Vulcan exclamation point at 2, and I just went with Galactic Whirlpool at 1. I just think I think the story might not be as good, but he just really captures what the feel of a Star Trek novel should be.
Yeah, you sold me. I'll keep it with my original. Just like when we do the boxing scoring, I'll keep my original scoring.
All right, what do you got?
So I have at 13, The Price of the Phoenix. And the price was steep enough that I'm never reading that book again in my life. Number 12, I have The Fate of the Phoenix. I feel like it would be a fate worse than death to read that book as well. Number 11, I have my first ever Star Trek novel, Trek to Mad World.
Yep.
And
you kept reading. And you kept reading. Good for you. That's the.
Yeah. Boy, that one did not age well. I remember liking that back in the day.
Yeah.
In my defense, I think I was about 13.
That was the target age right there, yes.
Yeah. In our first Wii U, I have Planet of Judgment at 9. Oh, no, I have Spock Must Die at 10.
Yep.
I hope you heard the exclamation in there.
Yep.
Planet of Judgment at 9. Spock Messiah at 8. There it was.
What'd you have at 10?
Spock Must Die.
Oh, Spock Must Die, yes. Okay, 10. And then Messiah at 8.
Maybe I should be saying Spock Must.
I had those reversed. That's why I was wondering. I had. Yeah. Okay. So go ahead.
I gave Spock Messiah extra bonus points for him being a weird orgy
cult leader. Yes, very nice.
Leader. Yeah, that took stones. Number 7, I have Devil World.
Yep. It's funny. We have the same 7 through 13. We have just in different order. That's right.
Yeah, 6, Wii U, I have The Starless World. Then I enjoyed the top 5. And I would say I did not enjoy a lot of the ones we've just named.
Yes.
It's not a strong list. Number 5, Mission to Horatius, which is fun. Almost ruined by that stupid plague rat stuff at the end, but it's still fun.
Yes. I was so ready to be, if they were actually we don't have a cure for the plague anymore. I don't know what we do. Thankfully, that was all made up because I was ready to just burn that book if that was the case.
Yeah. Number 4, World Without End. Number 3, Perry's Planet. Number 2, Vulcan. I would read you, Vulcan. Thank you. And I'll stick with my knee-jerk reaction. Galactic Whirlpool at 1. Yeah, the plot is kind of pedestrian, but it does feel like a Star Trek episode.
Yeah, it sure does.
It does. I thought Spock felt real in character. I liked the kind of expository stuff about how you track an object and how hard it is to decelerate to the right speed and how cursing came about in Starfleet. And there's even a shout out to, I believe, wasn't there a shout out to like building a still in the engine room? That is something you come across all the time in the novels. Was there one in this one? I thought there was.
So, and yeah, I mean, that's something they do in a lot of spaceships. I was watching an episode of the newer version of Battlestar Galactica, and they're building a still in like the third or fourth episode of that too. So it's a thing. Yeah. So yeah, I thought yes to more of the Spock's talking about his decision making. Yes to Spock fig tree stories. No to heffalumps and woozles.
Yes.
Yes to kind of filling in the history books about the 21st century energy battles, energy wars. No to Captain Jack Frost, and all that nonsense and exploding phasers and stuff like that. But on the balance, I thought it was definitely a modern feeling. I'm hopeful that most of when we get to the pocketbooks, that a lot of the pocketbooks feel like this stuff. So
yeah, this is light years better than the first couple we read, where it's like, all right, no Klingons for 1,000 years, and just pulling stuff out of thin air.
Yeah.
This felt like, with
Scotty
a couple
Scotty brushes back his red hair, and you're like, what?
Yeah, and there was too many Tiberiuses. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, that's fair.
He was muttering it all the time. It's like, yeah, we get it.
It's art of creative cursing. We get it. Yes.
But yeah, it was. I thought well written. It felt like an episode. Everybody was in character, so yeah, it's a win.
Winner. Chicken sandwich and coffee dinner. So we have one more Bantam book left to go, and that book is Death's Angel by Kathleen Sky, writer of Vulcan.
Yeah. Which remember for the cool cover.
Yep.
I'm sure you have the same one, right? It's like an hourglass.
Hourglass of the skull. Yes, exactly. So it'll be interesting to see how that one turns out. We'll see. And then after that, we leave the galaxy behind. We leave the solar system of Bantam books behind, and we move on. We get new artwork. We'll get a new photograph of us in our Star Trek shirts, and we will start up with the pocket novels after that. So we have
at random, right?
Random. So, yeah, we got a list of the first 50 of them, and I have 47 of the 50. You got all 50. So with any luck, we'll be spending a lot of time rolling dice and reading books and continuing our story through all the Treks. These ones from the ones that we read when we were in junior high and high school. So it'll be very exciting.
Yeah, that will be good. I'm excited, and there's probably some that we haven't read. I mean,
yeah,
I have a lot of the books, but I haven't read them all. I mean, we read them pretty religiously up to what, 30 or 40.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I probably remember the ones from the mid 20s to like the late 30s on the list. So it'll be interesting to see. Well, but anyway, that's a journey for another time. Next up, of course, is Death's Angel. So join us on our Literary Treks Journey to Bantam next time.
And I'm glad we're reading it now because I'm at 52. If we waited too many more years, it'd be hitting too close to home, Butch.
Exactly right. All right. So that's it for us tonight. This is Journey to Bantam signing off.
Good stuff.